Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us. My name is Gary Parker, and I'm the Managing Director of CNT Associates, who are bringing this presentation today. Um, People are still joining us, so I'm just letting them in. Um, and Today's subject is funding for health and wellbeing projects, which is a big area. I'm also joined by my colleague Sybil Mayard, who's going to speak very briefly just before we start. This presentation um, will take about 40 to 45 minutes, so there will be time for questions later. You can also put them in the chat too. If you can remain on mute, please. Like I see, all of you are, so we don't get any background noise while the presentation's taking place. Um, this is being recorded and will be on our YouTube channel in about 2 weeks' time. If you want to buy a copy of the presentation to go along with the video on our YouTube channel, you can buy it from us. Just email us. It will cost, and we'll send you an invoice. It'll be £30 plus VAT, which is £36. But it's 39 slides, and there's a lot of information here because this is quite a big subject. What you're going to get this morning is an overview. So we can't touch on every source of funding for health and wellbeing projects. So I will give you an overview which covers a lot of areas, including health research as well, briefly, and project-based funding. But before we get into that, I just wanted to introduce you to one of my colleagues, Sybil Mayard. She's our digital lead. She's got a master's degree in computer science, and she's going to tell you about some of the things we've been doing, or she's been working with health and wellbeing projects. So over to you, Sybil.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sybil, and I'm the Digital Services Consultant here at C&T Associates. So my role is to support small businesses, particularly those in the wellbeing sector, with improving their online presence and setting up of digital tools to help them to save time, cut costs, and grow their businesses. So the services that I can support with include website design and development. So that includes also building of e-commerce sites and directory websites. I also help with setting up of CRM systems, automation, email marketing, and analytics. And some additional new services that we can also support with are AI tools and cybersecurity basics. So if you're interested to know more about how we can help you, then please do get in touch with us. Thank you.
Okay, yes, you can email us or message us, and we'll get back to you on that with information about the digital services we provide. So, thank you all for joining us. There's quite a few of you online now. I'm going to share the presentation now. As I said earlier, it'll take about 40 minutes. So, okay. Right. Okay. So this is funding for health and wellbeing projects and organizations. So this is the introduction. This is our company. We do three things here. We do business support. We help with the development of both profit-making and non-profit making businesses and charities. We also write funding applications. We can give you a quote if you want from us to write either one application or a whole stream of them. We also work with other organizations in partnership too. That's something we will always consider as well. And as you've just heard, we provide a range of digital services which go alongside all of the work and the packages that we offer. We are based in London, and we've got an office in the northwest of England as well. And since we started, the company's been going for over 20 years. We've raised at least £30 million for the organisations that we've worked with. That's probably an underestimate, but it's the best one at this moment in time. And we work with a wide range of organisations, which range from the Jimmy Choo Fashion Academy to the British Library, and we work with universities. Recently, we've been running two big business support programs, one for the London Borough of Bexley and one for non-profit making organisations in the Royal Borough of Greenwich. Both of these were off the back of government-funded programs managed by the local authorities, where we were able to give people a lot of free support. Unfortunately, that government funding has now ended, so we have to go back to our usual charging policy. But if any free support arises that we can deliver, we will always tell our clients about that because that's the way we prefer to do it whenever possible. So we're going to move on now to the main part of the presentation. Sorry, I'm just having a bit of a problem here. It seems to have frozen. Here we go. Purpose of the workshop. Um, there's going to be an overview of key developments and regional, central, and local government funding streams. Looking at wellbeing, obviously health and wellbeing, and where to access funding, and the funding sources for organizations. This depends in part on your legal structure, and I'm going to talk about that very briefly in a second. But it's grants, trusts, central and local government funding, lottery funding, and charitable trust funding. And I would add to that for some organizations, crowdfunding. Um, you're going to get a lot of information and sources of support and website lists. So as I say, this is 39 slides. It's very comprehensive, and the cost of it, if you want a copy of the full presentation, it's £36, including VAT, just messages, and we'll send you an invoice. Okay, let's move on. There are six principal sources of funding, which I've grouped funds into. There may be others, but these are the main ones. Central, regional, and local government. That's your local authority, your regional authority. In London, that's the Mayor's Office, the Greater London Authority. Charitable and trust funds, which most people know about. The lottery funds, which we're going to talk a bit about. Crowdfunding. I'm going to cover crowdfunding very, very briefly. Private sector funding and trusts, because many large organizations, many banks, for example, such as Barclays and Lloyds, have charitable foundations, and the big supermarkets do this as well. Morrison's, Asda, Tesco, and many others. And the final one is social investment. Social investment are kind of hybrid funds. Sometimes the grants with additional payments for achieving outcomes. Sometimes they are part loan and part grants, depending on the sector that you're in. So as you can see, there is still a considerable amount of funding out there. If you're new to this, here is some of my top tips. The first one is a Kent-based site called Funding for All, but that's very, very useful. It has a lot of national funds on it as well, and it's free. Your local authority, wherever you are, if it's Bexley, for example, it's bexley.gov.uk, greenwich.gov.uk. dartford.gov.uk, etc., etc. Always check that because most local authorities do at least have some small grants programs, but you've got to search their website to get information about that. It's not if you're not in the loop, it's not always apparent. Although if you're a member of one of the associated organisations like the Council for Voluntary Service or various other networks that local authorities have, you may get that information. But if you don't have access to those channels, then you need to get on their website and do some searching. Um, Another one that I would recommend, this is free, Charity Excellence. Obviously, that's kind of aimed at charities, but it has lots of other funding sources as well. That site has several thousand sources on it at any one time, and you can register for that for free. Another one that will interest some of you is the Wellcome Foundation. The Wellcome Foundation is one of the top funders in the UK. It's a drug company, it's pharmaceuticals, and they're committed to giving away £2 billion by 2030. So they've been giving, they've been doing that for a few years. They give quite a lot of money, well, a considerable amount of money every year, but that's around health research. And it focuses on the areas that they are interested in. So, worth a look at because it will be of interest to some of you, but not all of you will focus on that area. No doubt. Another interesting one is the Edge Fund. The Edge Fund, it funds causes that are uh, unpopular, at least with some sections of the public anyway, or that they might have difficulty getting funding from other sources, like um, some migrant support groups and some groups that work with ex-offenders and others. So that's always an interesting fund, and they also it's the remit is limited, but they also have a list of other funders on the site as well, and that's good, and it's free. All of the ones that I'm telling you about are free unless I say otherwise. The other one, of course, that you should probably all know about is the National Lottery Awards for All England Fund. Um, that is there's no deadlines on that. It's constantly open, and you can apply for up to £20,000. But I'll talk a bit more about this later, I think. But to apply, you can't be an individual, you can't apply as an individual, and you can't apply as a profit-making company. So you've got to be some kind of non-profit making organization. Another um, very good site is Creative Lives, and that gives quite a lot of information and links on funding for health and well-being. So all of us, if you're new to this, then these are the places to start. There are other sources of funding, and we'll look at these shortly. There are many other funding sources. So I'm having some trouble here. Here we go. The first step, um, if you're new to this, as I've just said, to bid for any significant health and well-being funding, you're going to have to set up some kind of organization. It could be a community group. With that, you've got to have a constitution, a management committee of at least three people, and a bank account with two signatories on it. That's the most basic organization. In law, it's called an unincorporated association. Um, and There are others that are equally easy to utilize and set up. Um, So this is you need to give some thought and take some advice if you're new to this and want to set up a legal structure. Uh, Two others that you could consider are CLGs, Companies Limited by Guarantee, which is one of the oldest forms of non-profit making company, or a community interest company, which is a newer form. It's been around for about 25 years. Um, and community interest companies have a special registration and remit. With both of those, because one of the big questions people ask me is, can I get paid? Through both of those, yes, it's much more difficult if you're setting up you can't be, generally speaking, a paid trustee for a charity, except in some very, very limited circumstances. So, there are a number of links around about that. I think I've put one in there, but you can just search online for it. Or if you look at our YouTube channel, we've got lots of information on this. But if you're trying to apply as an individual, you're going to be very limited. The only one on this presentation you probably can apply for maybe is the Wellcome Foundation, and that's only very limited. So you've got to think about setting up some kind of organization, whether it's a community group, a company, or you can do it as a private company as well. But again, funding opportunities are very limited. You may need advice from an accountant or other professional, depending on circumstances. We offer some business development advice in this area, but we're not legal. We're not lawyers. So there are other places you can get advice from. So please contact us if you have any interest in that. Um, Here is another funding organization that you can join. This is the first one. It's called Funding Central. It used to be free. Now they charge a subscription for some organizations, but if your turnover is under 30,000, I think it is, you can join for free, and it's done on a self-identification basis. So if you I self-identify as a small organization, they'll probably give you a subscription, but you need to check that out on the site for their regulations on that. Um, Here is another one. This is London Catalyst. Again, it depends on what your legal status is, whether you can apply. But what this does is it's quite an active funder because they're always doing presentations in local communities and for councils for voluntary service. London Catalyst supports projects that address the unmet health needs of Londoners, especially focusing on those from disadvantaged communities. These are the quite small grants. They're fairly easy to apply for, but they're up to £5,000. In 2020, the average grant was £3,000, and I don't think that's changed much. They do have some other programs now, but with all of these, this is current at the time of writing, but they do change. In fact, I'm going to tell you about one that's changed this morning that I've got on this presentation. So you regularly need to get notifications or updates from the organisations concerned. I would strongly advise you to register with the ones that you're interested in. Here is another one. This is the Community Business Fund. This is an offshoot of the lottery. This is for businesses that come out of community organizations. So if, for example, some people in a local community were trying to set up a kind of carers project or business, you could apply to this organization, but it does have to be community led. Indeed, there's a big focus on community engagement with many funders now. The lottery is one in particular. You've got to, and this is an offshoot lottery fund, so it'll be the same with this. You've got to consult with your local communities and feed that information into your applications. That's not as difficult as it sounds, actually. But again, if anybody wants information about how to do that, please contact us. Um, this is some funding for health research. There are some projects I know on here today who are interested in this. Um, there's a number of sources for it. Generally speaking, you've got some of the big drug companies that do this, like AstraZeneca and Pfizer, who are on there. But again, it's focused on their areas of interest, and of course, Wellcome Foundation, who I mentioned. Others are interesting, like the King's Fund. You can do a lot of research. I'm not sure whether the King's Fund is actually funding at the moment, but again, it's one of these sites. If you're interested in this area, you've got to do that. Another interesting one is Nesta, the National Endowment for Science, Technology, and the Arts, and they have some funding programs, and they try and channel investment into uh, organizations as well. So quite an interesting organization. They've been around for about 20 years. Um, Here is some funding for women-led projects because there's a lot of women on the call today. So I want to focus some of the slides on support for women-led organizations. Um, One organization that some of you may have heard of is Enterprise Nation. They are formed by a woman called Emma Harrison about 20 years ago. They're Britain's biggest private business support organization, and they have a range of programs which are very good. They've had this Enterprise Nation Female Startup of the Year running. You need to check the website, see if it's currently running. I couldn't find any details of the 2026 one. I had a look yesterday, but it was certainly there last year. So, but Enterprise Nation is a very good organization. It supports a lot of women-led organizations, and they have a lot of events and low cost or no cost training, both in person and online. So I would recommend them. Um, Here is another one. This is an international fund. This is the Global Fund for Women. And basically, they will fund any organization led by women or girls. And they work internationally. You have to check the site as to whether, because sometimes they work in Europe and sometimes they don't. But if anybody's got any international connections, like with Asia or Africa or South America or some parts of uh, Eastern Europe, they may well fund projects there. Whether they're funding things in the UK at the moment, I'm not sure, but there certainly are in other parts of the world. That's a very well-funded organization. It's a US-based organization, and they've been around for many years. Um, this is one called the Rosa Fund, and I got an update this morning on this. They've just opened one of their funding streams because they do some work for new and emerging organizations, and they do some funding streams for established ones. But I think the one I got a notification for this morning was for newer and emerging organizations that are led by women or girls or focus on delivering projects for them. And you can get a grant of up to £28,000, I think it is. It says 40 on this. This is what they offered last time, but I'm pretty sure it said 28,000 this morning. But again, it is worth, it's got an associated trust called the Smallwood Trust, and they work together. The Smallwood Trust does give some grants to individuals, you know, women who have got uh, urgent personal circumstances that need to be addressed. But again, you need to check the website out for both of those. for the Small Wood Trust and the Rosa Fund. But the Rosa Fund is open today for new applications, but it is very competitive. But the funding is there, and they may well have some other funds in due course. Here we go. Yeah, this is the Small Wood Trust. Um, they This is an example project. This is from 2020, and this was for funding for Black, Asian, and minority ethnic-led women's projects. Just to give you an example of what they've funded in the past. I don't think the funding right now, but normally if the Rosa Fund starts funding, they will uh, fund some projects as well, maybe 2 or 3 months later. But you need to check the site out in order to get updated information. Um, and again, the Smallwood Trust has been around for over 100 years, so they will still continue to fund women led organizations and support projects that support women. Right. We're going to look at some central government grants now. Where do you get information about this? Um, If you're looking to supply government, there's a website at the bottom and that gives you some information. But on our YouTube channel, the last presentation we did a couple of weeks ago was around procurement, government procurement. So there's a lot of information on that presentation. It was written in conjunction with somebody who secured £7.5 million of funding, and that's for a health and wellbeing organisation as well. So that is well worth checking out. It's on our YouTube channel, C&T Associates on YouTube, if you want to check that out. Um, but there are other sources of information. One I've already mentioned, which is Funding Central. That has a lot of information at a local level. Your local authority, um, if you go onto their website and search on there, um, for some organisations, some community organisations, they can use the NCVO, the National Council for Voluntary Organisations website, or your local council for voluntary service. There's one in every uh, borough, certainly in London and many in other places as well. So that's just some sources of government contract information. Um, One of the other big areas that we've mentioned is charitable trusts. Um, There are over 10,000 charitable trusts in the UK that give over £100,000 a year. These figures have probably increased a bit because they're from a couple of years ago, but the charity's net worth is about £63 billion. And mutual organisations, that is, organisations like the Co-op, for example, and a whole range of other cooperative organisations, mutuals as the one of the terms for them, are worth 31 billion. So it's probably £100 billion now. So that's a significant amount of value, and they're still giving out in grant funding 4 to 5 billion a year in grants. Where do you get information about this? Well, two of the best sites are here. One is Charity Excellence that I've already mentioned. That's supported by many charities and is free to register with. Also, another very good one is Grants Online. We've got a subscription to this because it is a paywall. It has a paywall on it. I think it costs about £160 a year. if you want a subscription. But grants online, you can see the funds. I suppose you can do a Google search once you've identified the name of it. So if you can't afford or are unable to pay, you can still look at the site. It will tell you what the funder is. But you can't click through to it unless you've got the subscription. You have to search separately. But it can be done. And again, that's probably got about 2,000 funding sources on it at any one time. And they have strands of it, sections of it for regional funding and then particular funding like education funding, etc., etc. And of course, health and well-being as well. Um, Many of you will know about the lottery. The lottery have a number of programs. The two core programs are one, this is the biggest one called Reaching Communities. Um, and I mean, you can apply for funding up to £500,000 on that, but you basically have to be an established organisation because there's nothing to stop you applying, but you're going to be in competition with a lot of organisations that have got significant track records. So possibly one of that is working in partnership. This is a two-stage program. You've got to do an outline application and then a further application. So it does take quite a bit of time. It's decision up to 40 weeks. That's one of the things you'll find in fundraising. It's not a fast process with some notable exceptions, but you're talking at least a wait of about 3 months minimum to get a decision. Because the lottery is one of the faster ones. The other program, Awards for All, you get a decision within 16 weeks. The main grants program supports places, people or communities experience poverty, disadvantage, or discrimination. Um, and like I said earlier, you have to support people and communities to shape the decisions that affect their lives. So there's got to be quite uh, um, an interrelation between your organization or project and the community you're looking to work with. Um, but you know that funding is significant, and you can apply at any time. There's no deadlines. Um, this is the small grants program. In England, it's called Awards for All England. And you can apply for a grant of up to £20,000. You can be you don't have to be an established organisation. You can be a new organisation as well, um, and it provides funding for projects that bring people together to build strong relationships and to improve communities. Your project can last up to 2 years, so you have got time to set it up. For example, you could spend the first quarter setting it up, and then you've got uh, significant time to deliver it. Once that has taken, once you've applied and received your funding. Um, there is a lot of competition for this, but the success rates vary, but the better than some of the larger charities for various reasons I won't go into now. But that is definitely something that some of you should have a look at. But like I said earlier, you've got to have um, uh, a legal structure or organization to apply that is non-profit making. And it's the same for for the larger fund as well. You can't apply as an individual or a private company. So let's move on. Um, Here are a number of other funders. This is to support people with um, mental health issues. It's the Alan Lane Foundation. It's been around for a long, long time. The grant is maximum is 15,000, and the average grant is between five to £6,000. Um, and they fund a range of projects around this. You need to check the website. I've given some details there, but you need to check the website to get the updated information. But again, that's a long-standing funder to support people with well-being related issues. This one is for registered charities only. Um, Again, some of you may want to consider setting up a charity, but it does take some time. The most common form now is called a CAO, a charitable incorporated organization. And you have to go through the process of registering and or applying for it and register it, but you will get it's not a quick process, and you will get asked to clarify a lot of issues on that. The quickest organisations to set up are the non-profit making companies like community interest companies and companies limited by guarantee, which that's where the growth is these days for a wide range of reasons. But this is the Chapman Charitable Trust. It promotes physical and mental well-being, and they do some work around environment and accessibility of the arts for young people. And again, as you can see from this, applications can be submitted at any time. Um, Here is another new one. This is the ASDA Foundation. I mentioned earlier that a lot of private sector organisations have charities. Um, I don't know a lot about this one. There's a range of things they do, and they like to support the development of community spaces, I think. So you need to check the website for up-to-date information about that. But obviously, ASDA are, a well-funded organisation, although these are very small grants of between £500 and £1,000. Here is another one. Again, you need to check this out to see what it's funding, because it's not always open to applications, but it supports health and well-being, um, and in a range of areas. They'll support quite a wide range of projects. But typical grants here are between £1,000 and £5,000. And you have to have an annual income of below £150,000. But if you're interested in that, then please check out the website. Here is another of the lottery funds. This is the Postcode Society Trust, which is funded by contributions from the Postcode Lottery that you'll see advertised on TV. Um, this one provides funding for charities and non-profits in the south of England. They do it on a regional basis. It's not always open all the time. Usually in London and the southeast, it is open round about the end of August, beginning of September. Yeah, the date. So no, there is a date coming up. I've put it on there. 26th of May till the 2nd of June. And then I was right about the later one, 25th of August till the 1st of September. So it's only a 1 week window. So if you're interested in this, you need to look at the site well in advance and get everything in order so you can apply within that 1 week window, and don't leave it till the last day, because sometimes with online applications, the systems find difficulty coping with a large amount of last minute applications, which this one could potentially engender. But there are two rounds, one that's coming up very soon. And the other is in the autumn. But again, this is quite a big funder of charities and non-profit making organisations in the south of England. So what I'm talking about there, incidentally, is London, Kent, and Sussex. They fund in the other home counties at other parts of the year. Right, let's look at a few other funders now. This is who I mentioned earlier, the Wellcome Trust. Um, they are one of the largest grant funders in the UK. They're distributing over £700 million a year, and they have a range of funding programs. Unusual in comparison with other charitable funders. You can apply because they've got quite a few programs. You can't apply for everyone, but you can apply for some programs, whether you're an individual, a business, a profit-making company, or a non-profit or a charity. But you have to focus on what they is what their areas of interest are or priorities. Here is one. This is an old one. This is not funding now, but they have 14 or 15 strands and they change all the time. So it's not possible to give information about all of them right now, or even if I did, they would probably change very soon. So this is just a good example of one. This was funding for organizations, companies, and individuals that have the ability to engage the general public through health research and science. So it's using any kind of media, in this case, film, art, digital media, to engage with people about health research. Um, the grants range from 5,000 to 3 million. So that just shows the range of funding that was on offer here. There's some very big grants on this site, but again, as you can imagine, um, there's going to be competition for it, but it's well worth looking at the sites because, they have about 14 or 15 programs on the go at any one time. So, yeah, it's a very interesting one. Um, some of you might be interested in crowdfunding. I'm not going to say a lot about this, but for non-profit making projects, because there's two types. There's crowdfunding for business as well, which is quite is a slightly different form, which I'm not going to talk about today. But basically, most crowdfunding sites are a bit like GoFundMe. You pledge funding to a project. Um, the best site, if you're new to that or considering it, is crowdfunded.co.uk because that does fund businesses as well. But basically, you put a project up online and you make a video, um, a short video. And then you have to promote it yourself. But the hope is you can drive enough people to the uh, to your site or project, and they will fund it. If you're a non-profit making organization, a lot of the time they're not charging. If you're a profit making organization, they will charge you between 4 and 9% of what you raise. So there's no money in advance, but obviously they collect the pledges, as they call them. And then if you hit your target, they will give you the money minus the commission, basically. That's how it works. But there are a number of other elements to this, but I just wanted to mention it in passing. But if you're interested in this, crowdfunder.co.uk is definitely the best one to look at. And I would advise you to look at projects, do a search on that site and look for projects similar to yours and see how much money they're raising. If they are raising money, it's worth considering. If they're not, then you should probably reconsider. But yeah, that's a very good site, crowdfunder.co.uk. Um, Here is another one. This is the Hollyhock Charitable Foundation. Um, and one of the priority areas is the advance the health and well-being of the general public. Um, uh, this is quite an old organization. You can probably tell by the wording, including preventing or relieving sickness, disease, or suffering, as well as the promotion of good health. So health and well-being, they will fund it. Um, it's always difficult to know with some of these whether they will fund non-profit making companies. Usually, if they say charities only, then obviously that's what they're going to do. You'll fund charities. But if it says awards grants to charitable organizations. That usually includes other non-profits, but you do need to check the site. And as it says there, this is probably one you've never heard of. The foundation has a fund of £1 million for grants at any one time. So quite a big funder in real terms. Um, and you have to apply direct to them because they don't even have a website, a lot of these types of organizations, for whatever reasons. Another one that some of you might be interested in, if you're doing work with arts and wellbeing, is the Arts Council. Um, the Arts Council offers awards from £1,000 upwards, and they have a number of grant programs at any one time. The best thing to do is to look at the site, but you will have to. The Arts Council is not an easy organisation to apply for. I don't want to put you off if you've got a project that fits its priorities, but you do have to put some work into that. Even registering your project through the system takes a few days. But the Arts Council is the premier arts funder in the UK, and has obviously receives a lot of government funding, but there is a lot of competition. It's like a bit like the lottery, and they do get some lottery funding as well, incidentally. There is a lottery funding strand on their website as well as other art-related projects. This is the Paul Hamlyn Fund. I mean, this is a previous fund here because, again, that's an organization that changes its remit all the time. Paul Hamlyn was a millionaire publisher who died during the 1980s, and he bequeathed a lot of his money into this foundation, which does a lot of good work. I'm a big fan of the Paul Hamlyn Foundation, does a lot of good work with young people. So that's well worth checking out especially if you're doing arts related work with young people, but they do fund more general arts and well-being related work as well on some of their programs. So that's worth checking out. Um, I'll mention this very briefly. This is Innovate UK. It's the government's biggest um, tech funding agency. They put considerable money into it. Um, you can do they do fund some well-being based businesses, but it's from the technology angle. So I'm not sure if there are many organizations or if there are any organizations on the call this morning. But if you're interested in that area, there is significant funding through Innovate UK and its umbrella body, which is called UKRI, UK Research and Innovation. So let's keep going. Um, Here is another one. I mentioned this earlier on my top five. This is Creative Lives. Um, and it supports a lot of initiatives around creativity, well-being and creativity it is a big area. And there's a range of other funders on that site. I've just listed some of them. Some of you will have heard of Sport England, obviously funds sport, but it does fund some other things as well. And there's a range of other ones there, which I won't go through. But that is definitely worth checking out because they do a lot of work in partnership with other health and wellbeing organisations. Um, Here is the Rain Foundation. Again, this has been around for quite a few years. It was set up by some of the founders or chief shareholders of Tesco. So they do have a number of priorities, but again, some of the grants are quite large. This is an example of one to support Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities. But they have a number of strands to it. For example, young people's improved mental health, arts as a tool to achieve social change and improve the quality of life for carers and for older people. So if your work falls into any of those areas, that's a good one to look at. And they do pay out some quite big grants, but again, as you can imagine, there is competition for that, so you need to review it carefully. Here is another of the postcode lottery funds the People's Postcode Trust. You can apply for up to 20,000 for this. There are two rounds a year, which organisations can apply for. Um, uh, and they'll fund within that limit the total funds that are requested in the application. So if it's 10,000, they'll fund it fully, etc., etc. Um, Mentioned awards for all right at the beginning. Again, you can apply for up to £20,000 if your wellbeing project is related to sport or heritage, cultural heritage. Then both of those organisations get lottery funding. You should focus your applications through there. But if it's a mainstream health and wellbeing project, then Awards for is a big funder of those types of projects. You can apply for up to £20,000, and they pay you if you get the funding, they pay all the funding to you up front. So it's not done in installments or anything like that. So you get all the money at once. But two tips on this. You've got to focus on the community engagement bit of it because that's what most applications fail on, and you've got to provide a very detailed budget, which they crawl all over and ask you for additional information. So if you can address those two issues, you've got a good chance of getting the money. And of course, we advise people about how to write those all the time. Um, but you can certainly do that one yourself, but you need to review it carefully. I think this is the final one. This is the Esme Fairbairn Trust. This is a London-based trust that funds a number of things. Again, their priorities kind of change quite a lot. This is some of the things they funded in the past: cultural activities, education and learning, um, the natural environment, and participation of disadvantaged communities or people. So if your health and wellbeing project falls into any of those areas, then you've got a good chance of getting funding. Right. This is just want to give you an example of a couple of things that we've done. This is one of our clients. This is Jenny Tomei. Jenny runs a project called Gen Up Community, which works with uh, women and girls who've had eating disorders or have food related issues. Um, Jenny was, it's all on her website. Jenny had an issue with that herself, which she managed to overcome, and she's tried to help other people. Um, and working together, we've been quite successful in raising, what have we got, £30,000 in lottery funding, plus some other funds as well from other organisations that she's working with. So that's just, if you want more information about her project, the website address is there. Um, this is another one. This is a Greenwich-based organisation. This is the Gaia Women's Fitness Community. They do a lot of work around health and well-being, everything from fitness boot camps to laughter yoga, and to a project that I've helped them get some funding on called the Women's Circle. They've also got some lottery funding recently to promote and support movement. In people who are either older or have problems with mobility. So again, they do a lot of good work, and it's worth checking out their business model, which is quite strong because they're able to get some grants for some things, and then they charge for, the fitness side, boot camps, etc., etc. So as a business model, I'd say that's one that works pretty well. Um, and I think that's it now. So if you want to contact us, well, you've got probably got our details anyway. But if you want to look at that and photograph that slide, if you want to, there's all of our contact details. And we write applications for funding and support the development of organisations as well. So I'm going to stop there. and I will take any questions. So I think we've got a few in the chat. Uh, let's have a look. Difficulty. So I need to get out of this. Okay, has anybody got any particular questions? Um, if there is no, if you've got no particular questions, as I've said earlier, oh, Penny, hi.
Oops, Daisy, sorry, I'm looking for my video.
Yeah,
Right, yes, yes, the questions I put in the chat really. One is the funding for women's stuff, if you
yeah.
like. Um, how, to what degree is that very tightly restricted to organizations that are specifically for women, as opposed to women's projects from general organizations, or indeed projects that in practice are 90% plus women, but in theory are anyone?
Yeah, and normally you should be able to get those. You'll certainly accept the applications, whether they'll be funded, even if you're not an organisation that works solely with women. But you need to check out the website um, to ascertain that because all funders' priorities are different. There's no two that are the same. Um, but there are quite a few, the Smallwood Trust and the Rosa Fund. The Rosa Fund have just literally launched a fund this morning. So you need to check out the terms and conditions of that because sometimes they change them. But generally speaking, it shouldn't be a problem. But it depends on the particular funder and their priorities at a particular
Okay,
time.
that makes sense. And my related question is, um, the conversation I keep having with people is with people like local authority funders is I talk about relationship poverty, i.e., people who don't have access to family support or other unpaid support. At which the reply tediously is, let me tell you about our cost of living support. And so, what I'm particularly interested in is funders who will support activities for people who are not stinking rich, but are not, their disadvantage is not primarily that they haven't got money.
Right. Well, I mean, again, you can apply to the awards for all strand of the lottery. Um, as long as your project, they have three priorities, and as long as your project meets those priority areas, or you can demonstrate that it meets them, they'll consider your application.
Okay. But in your experience, to what degree is the focus still very much, financially disadvantaged?
Um, it depends, it depends what your project is. If it's, for example, if it's an environmental project, well-being and environment, you know, that affects all communities. It's not, you know, climate change doesn't discriminate against any community. It's a reality for all of them. So, like I said, it depends. What you've got to do is you've got to check the priorities of the funder. I mean, sometimes you can ask them. I'm surprised that, because I'm always advising people to clarify with the funder whether, I mean, some of them actually say to contact them as well. So that's what I would do. If you have concerns around that, I would contact the funder. But I think there's quite a lot that you should be able to apply for.
Okay, thank you very much.
Nella.
Yes, hello, and thank you for that, Gary. Sorry, I can't put on my webcam because I've just ordered a new one. Um, but yeah, I wanted to know about sole traders and what grants, if any, are available for people who haven't incorporated their businesses yet.
Um, I think the answer to that is very few. This is a conversation I have with people all the time.
Mm.
Yeah, we've got some echo on here, and I'm not sure where that's coming from. Uh, Nella, can you just put yourself on mute? Okay, that's it. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's going to be very difficult. That's what I said at the beginning, because most funders don't really want to fund individuals or sole traders. I mean, that like the lottery are quite clear on this. They won't fund any individual or any business, and a sole trader is both of those. Usually, it's an individual and a business, so you can't apply. That's a blanket rule. Um, what you're going to have to consider, because this is, we've been doing fundraising work for many years, and this is one of the reasons why we started doing business support to advise people what their options are. And the options that you've got are kind of, there's no easy option because you can still be a sole trader. That's fine. But you'd either have to set up a non-profit making company or a community group. Um, one of the disadvantages with community groups, if you're applying for small amounts of money, then that's okay. But you don't have the limited legal liability that you do have in a company. In other words, you could be personally liable for the debts of your community organization unless you have relevant insurance. So there's a number of things that you need to consider around that. Most community groups, if they start to do more work, they take on some of the form, whether it's a charity or a non-profit making company. But as a sole trader, it is very, very difficult to get any charitable trust funding. There are other grants that you might be able to apply for. And as I said right at the beginning, we were delivering business support for free off the back of a government fund. It tends to be what sole traders tend to get is that. Because for whatever reason, local authorities and government agencies will only fund sole traders in very limited circumstances, I'm afraid.
Right. Sorry about that. Thank you for that, Gary. That's really helpful. Also, would we get a copy of the slides or not?
Um,
Or
it's,
just with
it's,
information about the different organizations providing the
yeah,
funding?
yeah. But this is go sorry, can you put yourself on mute? Yeah, thanks. This is going to go on our YouTube channel in about a week or so's time, so you'll have full access to it then. If you want to buy the presentation to go with it, then messages that the cost for that is £30, including VAT, but you've seen how comprehensive it is as well. And you'll also get some priority invites to some of the other things and events that we are involved with. So it is worth it. Eunice.
Thank you.
Hi, Gary. Sorry, I can't put on my camera at the moment. Can I ask you a question? If you now, because I heard what you said about the sole trader, if you
Yeah,
decide to become a limited liability company, are
yeah.
you going to be able to apply for funding even if you're not community led or charitable trust organization or something? Are you still
Yeah.
going to be able to apply for funding from all these places?
Again, it's if your company, if it's a private company limited by shares, for example, C&T Associates is that it's a my company. It is a company owned by shareholders. Then we're not allowed to apply for any charitable trust funds. It's simple as that. You may be able
Okay.
to apply for other government grant programs, but as I've just said um, to Nella, you it tends to be advice that you're going to get these days. It's very limited unless some new government programs open up, which you can't discount. But certainly at the moment, there aren't any there. So it's
Okay.
if you want to run a private company and get grants to work with on wellbeing projects, health and wellbeing projects, it's going to be very, very limited indeed. The only one on this presentation you could probably apply for, and even then it might be limited, is for the Wellcome Foundation.
Okay. Okay.
So sorry to
Okay.
be the bearer of bad news,
No,
but at least you know
yeah, yeah.
the
At
questions
least
are
I
coming
know.
all
So
the
it
time.
doesn't make any difference, even if you're a limited liability company or you're
No,
sole trader, as long as it's not community based or whatever, you
yeah.
can't. Okay, okay.
To access funding, what you've got to do is you've got to set up either a company limited by guarantee or a community interest company limited by guarantee. Because there are two
Okay.
types of community interest company. One is limited by shares, which some bigger organizations utilize. But if you pick the one limited by shares, then organizations like the lottery and some big charities regard it as a private company, so they won't fund it.
Uh,
Um, uh,
oh,
there are some complexities around this, but if you're a community group, non-profit making organization, or a charity, you can apply for most of the funds that I've detailed today.
so can you have the two? Can you have a community group
Yes,
and
you
also
can run two
be
companies.
self-employed or and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean
you can be a sole trader
sole
and
trader?
run a uh, a company limited by guarantee.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can set one up and you can apply. But again, there are some, I'm not going to go into this now, but there are
Okay.
some issues around that as well. But yeah, you can certainly, a non-profit making company can apply for funds, a charity can apply for funds, and a community group can apply as well.
Okay, but you can still have the two. You have your profit making, which you're sole trader, and
Yeah,
then you have the non-profit. You can have the two. That's what I wanted to clarify.
yeah, absolutely. Well, if you look at the big supermarkets I've just mentioned, obviously Asda, for example, Asda has got Asda as the business, and they've got the Asda Community Foundation, which is a
Yeah, okay,
separate
yeah.
organization, and Asda donates money to that, which goes to community projects.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Gary.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining us today. I just wanted to put in a plug for something else I'm doing. If you want to know more about this, I'm doing a free live event in it's on the 10th of June from 11 till 12 with Startup Greenwich. If any of you are members of Startup Greenwich, this will be a live event at the Woolwich Library. They're also running one about the legal structures for health and wellbeing organisations and others on the 3rd of June. So that will cover some of the things that I've just talked about. But both of those are on Eventbrite now. So you can register for my event is on the 10th of June, which is how to write a well-being application, an application for a health or well-being project, plus some of the information you've got this morning, and obviously you'll be able to see myself and the other people from Startup Greenwich in person, and then the event on the 3rd of June. Is about the setup and legal issues before you start to apply. But if you want to register for either of those, please message us or you can go onto Eventbrite now and look for Startup Greenwich because both the events are registered on their site on Eventbrite. Okay, so it's 10 past 12 now. Thank you all for joining us today. We've had a considerable number of people, and we will be running more webinars in due course. I'm glad my Apple Mac has seen it out today. I had one or two problems, but Thank you for joining us. It's much appreciated. And the recording will be online very, very soon. So thank you all and hope to see you soon.